Hi, my name is Anjani Segrist, and today I'm going to be talking about Synastry charts and relationship compatibility. So there's a lot of different ways to do Synastry readings and to look for relationship compatibility. And my intention is different than some people's. So what I'm looking at is two individuals and how they can better relate to each other, and not by faking it, not by dishonoring parts of themselves. Some of the words that I've heard a lot in relationships: sacrifice, compromise, like all these kinds of things. My real focus is on let's see who you are and let's see who you are, like both of the partners. Find out what it is that each person is working with and the part of their evolution that they're working toward. And on the chart, there is something called relationship axis. The first and the seventh house show us a lot about your relationship style. So looking at that for both people, looking at Venus and Mars for both people, and so you both get a good understanding of what you're each working with and ways to merge and have a union and just to really co-create a loving, honest, and really fulfilling partnership. So I'm going to be using two charts of people who I know. And so this is what the way that I do my charting. First of all, on the outside is his information, and on the inside is hers. And all these lines show us where their lives intersect, where the different aspects are. And there's certain markings that we look for to begin with that would be indicators of a compatibility, and some that are indicators of a challenging thing. So for instance, here's this is another couple, and she's on the outside here, and she has Saturn going conjunct to his Uranus. So this is actually considered to be a challenging aspect for a couple, because Saturn has to do with the principle of constriction and conformity and discipline, pressure and structure. And Uranus has to do with the opposite of that, which is expansion, freedom, radical, revolutionary, big thoughts and ideas. So when there's something like this, it's, not saying that it's a break it. There's nothing in here that says that. There's things that are challenging that, we can understand and say, hey, this is something that comes up. Maybe sometimes she is more domineering and crushing his ideas, or restricting him in some sort of ways. So this creates a venue for the couple to address this. If, most likely it is something that is either has come up or it's unearthed, it's underground, hasn't really been talked about. Very simple, easy way to just start to communicating about different things. So I'll just cover the main relationship indicators for compatibility. So we're looking at Venus on both charts and any aspects with Venus in either direction. We're looking at Mars, the South and North node. The South node in a chart will show us, you might think of it like karma, past life, history, relationships. Sometimes when you have a South node accent on your chart with your partner, it'll say that, it'll give us a clue that this relationship automatically felt comfortable without even trying, because there is a sort of remembrance or feeling familiar with a person. That can also happen with Saturn. If you have Saturn aspecting the moon or the sun. So the North Node, if you have anything aspecting the North Node, it shows us that possibly the people in the relationship will feel a sort of destiny to be together. It's like they can't quite get away from each other in a way. Saturn is the same thing. When Saturn is aspecting certain parts of the chart, it'll feel like very familiar and almost like you can't get away. So some placements with Saturn, it'll be like, you know, more fighting, but they always come back together. Saturn in relationship astrology is known as the glue that binds relationships, so that sometimes we'll see Saturn in certain aspects that say that this is like a marriage, a committed relationship. Saturn can show us, and it doesn't mean that if you don't have these aspects with Saturn that you're not going to have a committed it doesn't mean that at all. And also what I was saying with this thing that this other couple has, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, she's going to be restricting him or he's going to feel restricted by her. It doesn't necessarily mean that. This is just giving us clues and an avenue to go down to start communicating with our partner about deeper topics. And most usually I find that these things are right on point. So we left off with Saturn in the North Node. So then we're also going to look at the sun and moon. The sun, where, you know, out here we have him on the outside. So where his sun hits on her chart is sort of like, they call it, you light up my life. It'll be showing us how he is impacting her, because the sun is the brightest part of us. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. We get by looking at the sun. So let's just, there's a few more things, but since I'm talking about that, I do want to just show here. Here is his sun. His stuff is here on the outside. Here is her sun. So they are in opposition to each other. So on the Pisces Virgo axis. The Pisces Virgo axis is all about service, being in service to spirit through love, universal love, compassion, empathy. And Virgo is the priest, the priestess. It's about working, you know, doing the mundane tasks. The way I hold Virgo is ritual, daily ritual, things that ways that I continuously honor my body throughout the day. Everything I do, I'm feeding the goddess, I'm dressing the goddess, I'm, you know, it's this is a Virgo sort of archetype. And this couple has the sun opposing each other, so it's like brightening up that whole polarity, and they're just bouncing back and forth off of each other. So they might feel like, you know, in a way feeding each other. So her sun is over here in Pisces and his is over here in Virgo. So actually, let's just have a peek here. This is her stuff here. There's Mars, Vesta, the sun, the South Node, and Juno, who is known as the marriage aspect. We call that because it has to do with commitments, pleasure, union. His Juno is right up here, so they both have Juno in the same house and in the same sign of Pisces. And his Jupiter is up here. Jupiter basically expands everything it touches, and where Jupiter intersects with in Synastry astrology, it basically makes that person, so this would make her feel very jovial, playful, expansive. So we look at Jupiter also to find out it is definitely considered a compatibility marker, because it brightens up the other person wherever it hits. And his Jupiter is hitting right over this big chunk of everything that, a bunch of things in the sign of Pisces. So that is definitely considered, this whole thing is considered highly compatible because they have every single one of the indicators. So Venus in aspect to Neptune, for instance, on and also it's a little bit different because the way that he is affecting her, we can see from this chart, because he's on the outside, we can see the way he is affecting her. In putting her on the outside, we can see the way she is affecting him. So I didn't do as much of the heavy highlighting here, and I did more charting by writing, and just highlighted the main compatibility things, which there is every single one here. So the South Node for her is going over Jupiter. Her moon is going over Jupiter and Juno, the Sun. So this portion of the reading can go on and on and on. And I'm not going to cover every single one of those things. I just wanted to mention the main relationship indicators: South Node, North Node, Venus, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, the Sun, and the Moon. So we would be here for a very long time, touching on, all the ways that these people are activated and activating each other. So I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is go straight to what I like and I consider to be my favorite part of Synastry astrology, is looking at the two individuals and finding out, what is her main purpose? What is she opening up into? What is she learning about in this lifetime? And what is her lineage? And the same thing for him. What's his lineage? The lineage is basically telling what the person is already a master of. Just by being born, there's certain things that everybody is already highly attuned to. And in Synastry relationship readings, we always want to honor our partner for their lineage, honoring them for what they are already a master of. And there is this little equation. So it's like 1 out of 3. So 1/3. 1/3 of the time we would be honoring them for their moon. And the rest of the time, we would be honoring them for their what they're learning about, the rising sign and their Venus-Mars material. So I'm going to cover that now. So for her, she has her moon in the sign of Cancer. So she's naturally nurturing, loving, takes care of the home, wants to have food cooked. She's going to have the food cooked. It's very important to her to, it's a giver sign. The moon is a giver sign. So it feels best in giving. Then what she's learning about, so we look at the first house to find what she's learning about. She has her rising sign in the sign of Taurus, and her descendant is over here in Scorpio. So this is the relationship axis, which is Taurus and Scorpio. We consider this to be the pathway of Tantra. So for her, the whole point of being in a relationship is to experience life force energy, maximum life force, the most amount of pleasure with little to zero pain. The pathway of Tantra means that the relationship should charge her batteries and leave her feeling charged, not drained. The next thing is her Venus, her inner feminine. This is something that he would want to be feeding this part of her, you know, giving her compliments for these things, Taurus and her Venus, which is in Aquarius. So combining Taurus and Aquarius together, he can understand that the way that she's expressing the form of the goddess is through the mind. Aquarius is cosmic consciousness. It's really far out there, big picture perspective. The animal, the hawk, comes to mind because it's something that a hawk is, you know, high. It has a big view, and it can be detached at times. It can seem very removed from, you know, what's going on. So taking that into account, he can realize, okay, Taurus, she loves being embodied. She loves physical pleasure. She loves getting gifts. Taurus likes to receive. Taurus is actually, as a rising sign, she's learning how to be in healthy receivership. She may not be fully comfortable with it because the rising sign isn't a place where we're fully comfortable. But when you combine Aquarius with Taurus, this I call the cosmic tantrika, because she is completely, has a, you know, big perspective, and also fully in the body. So that covers, you know, the inner feminine portion, what he would want to know about. Then for her, let's look at him now. He has his moon in Aquarius, which would say that his lineage is that cosmic consciousness. So this would be considered another compatibility point, because she understands him, and she understands when he's disconnected, when he goes off and seems like his body is there, but he's somewhere completely different. That happens a lot for people with Aquarius moon, and she understands. There's no problem with that. So say if she didn't understand that, this would be a point where the two would talk about it. Say that she, you know, couldn't understand why he's detached half the time or some of the time. This would be a point where he would say, you know, this is just part of my personality and it has nothing to do with you. And this is opening a doorway to talk about these things. The next thing we'll look at is his relationship axis. So not very frequently, it's not that frequent that people have the same relationship axis. So his is over here, who am I? First house in Gemini. And over here, who are you, is in Sagittarius. So his relationship axis is completely different. Gemini Sagittarius wants to have a quest mate. So where she is experiencing life force energy and wanting a partner for tantric reasons, you know, being able to maximize life force energy, his main purpose in being in a relationship has to do with questing, you know, going, exploring, learning new things. And what he wants is to have somebody who will be a quest mate, not necessarily going with him, but it's better if she does, because that would be fantastic if they were questing after the same things, but it's not necessary. What is necessary is that he has somebody who is supportive of his questing. So not complaining about it, not guilting him, shaming him, but rather saying, you know, he's like, hey, I want to go hike the Himalayas. And she's going to be like, oh my God, I am so excited for you. I'm going to miss you. And, you know, this is what I love about you. You're like, yes, go do it. Go explore. And let's just for a minute mention the sexuality difference here, because for her, it is really it's a big deal. Sexuality is a huge thing. And for him, just in the relationship axis part, because we find out more about sexuality by looking at Venus and Mars. But just from this point where we are, there is a little bit of a difference where the couple would want to communicate these things. You know, for him, sexuality can be more fun and playful and doesn't have to be so intense and serious, which it is for her. It is more intense and serious for her. So this could be a place where they would communicate, you know, that it's going to be both. We're going to find a way to make it be both so that we're both having our needs met and we're both being satisfied. The next thing I'll mention here, his Mars. So Mars tells us what he is, the form of the God that he is embodying, and he has his Mars in the sign of Virgo. So same place his sun is. And Virgo is all about the mundane tasks. Virgo can also be very cool at times, not so emotionally charged, not so emotionally expressive. So that would be something for her to understand and for them to have a conversation about, you know, so that they each are understanding where they're coming from. The next thing I'll mention is the 7th house. The 7th house lets us know what's important to the person in the relationship. And she has Uranus in the 7th house, which would say that in old school astrology, they've called Uranus the divorce indicator when it's in the 7th house, because this person wants to have maximum freedom. So with her relationship axis being Taurus, Scorpio, it's all about intimacy, intensity, passion, sexuality. And Uranus there says freedom. She really values her freedom and wants space and wants to be able, it's like going into the union full force, full life force energy. And then when we part, we disconnect all the cords, and she is, you know, getting able to process her emotions, process her feelings, go read, wander around in the jungle by herself, really being able to be free and expansive. So how to have full intimacy and full freedom at the same time. This is what I see here in the 1st and 7th house for her relationship axis. And for him, he has Neptune and the North Node in the 7th house. So first, let's talk about Neptune in the 7th house. Neptune in the 7th house is saying that the dream and the vision for the relationship is almost as important. It is as important as the relationship. So how does the relationship fit into his dream and vision? And is he able to continue dreaming his dream forward and having his visions be honored in the relationship? So if he comes one day and says that he has this idea that he wants to anything, you know, explore anything. It could, because I can't even think of it right now because it's going to be something way out there. This is the deepest of the unconscious. Neptune shows us about the deepest unconscious, the vast sea of consciousness, the dream state, the life dream. So he's going to say something, we don't know what it is. And her response, hopefully, to honor the relationship is going to be, yes, let's talk about this. Let's, you know, so both of these people have a celestial energy in their 7th house, which Neptune and Uranus are both, they're both unknown. There's, you know, it's like if you take a shamanic journey into the upper realms, you know that you're going to find something beautiful and magical there, you know, but you don't know what it is. So that's what we're working with in this particular relationship. And he has also the North Node in the 7th house, which tells us that his intention for relationships have to do with moving him, progressing him into his destiny. Relationships are very important to him in his evolution and life purpose and life intention, even because the North Node shows us our life purpose and our life intention. So the 7th house for him is really, really important. The relationships in his life are really, really important in progressing him into his own evolution. So these are just some basic things. There is so much more, and a typical Synastry relationship reading is going to be about 45 minutes to an hour, and depending on if there's extra questions, extra things you want to look at. There's a little bit more with this portion, but I'm going to end there and just show a composite chart. So what a composite chart is, basically, I don't use them a whole lot. So here's hers, here is his, and this is basically the combination of the two. So the relationship taking on its own identity in a way. So the relationship has its own 1st house and 7th house. We can get some clues here, and there is so much material on composite readings. The reason I don't place a ton of weight on them is because we're looking at the relationship as an entity, and I like to focus more on the individuals and how to get them together into a relationship, and then letting the relationship take on its own entity. The composite chart, it's interesting. We can see some things, and I would say that's like 3rd tier priority in looking at Synastry, but it's there and it's useful and helpful. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I'll have some links down below if you're interested in learning more about Synastry, or if you would like to have a reading for you and your beloved. I would be honored to do that. I love working with relationships. It's one of my number one magical expressions in doing astrology. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to connecting with you.